Ukrainian troops have been filmed firing a chain gun from a US Bradley while attacking Russian forces in the Donetsk region. Footage shows the M2 Bradley rapidly firing rounds at Russian troops amid the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Plumes of gray smoke can be seen emerging from the Russian position during the ground assault. The M2 variant holds a crew of 3, a commander, a gunner, and a driver, along with 6 fully equipped soldiers. Technically speaking, it is not a tank, but it has been referred to as a tank killer due to its anti-tank missile capabilities. The Bradley, named after US General Omar Bradley, is designed to transport infantry or scouts with armored protection while providing covering fire in combat zones. Variants of the Bradley include the M2 infantry fighting vehicle and the M3 reconnaissance vehicle. Reconnaissance vehicles are intended to observe areas to locate an enemy, survey the surroundings, and gain strategic advantages on the battlefield. The vehicle protects troops from smaller enemy fire and offers enough firepower to eliminate incoming enemy infantry. The vehicle is highly maneuverable and fast enough to keep up with heavy armor during an advance. The Biden administration has been providing Bradleys to Ukraine as part of a series of military aid packages. The new video comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visits the UK to address the British cabinet under newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Zelensky called on Starmer to show leadership and provide Ukraine with long-range capability, and said, if the restriction on Western weapons is lifted, it would help reinforce defenses and maintain frontline positions. The Ukrainian president called for the urgent need for long-range weapons to protect our people's lives in a statement posted on X, formerly Twitter. The UK Secretary of Defense, John Healey, didn't rule out the president's request to use British missiles in Russian territory. He said the UK would provide military aid and support to Ukraine for the rest of the decade. A spokesperson for the European Union said recently, as Ukraine exercises its inherent right to self-defense, the European Council calls for the delivery of military support to Ukraine to be stepped up. Russia's once extensive Soviet-era stockpile, which has propped up its war effort in Ukraine, is dwindling and could affect Moscow's ability to continue advancing in the east of the country, according to a new report. The Kremlin has relied heavily on Soviet reserves of tanks, armored vehicles, and weapons to push forward with its offensives across the hundreds of miles of front lines in Ukraine. Slews of more advanced equipment, like newer main battle tanks, were destroyed, damaged, or captured in the initial phases of the war after Moscow launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Russia has hiked its defense spending to expand tank and vehicle production and turned to thousands of mothballed vehicles in storage to fill the gaps. Reserves of tanks and armored vehicles are key for fighting the battles going on in eastern and northeastern Ukraine, as are supplies of artillery systems. But experts told The Economist in an article published on Tuesday that by mid to late 2025, Russia's ability to use vehicles that have long sat in storage will have reached a critical point of exhaustion. Many of Russia's T-72 tanks have reportedly been exposed to the elements since the fall of the Soviet Union in late December 1991 and have likely suffered for it. Russian forces may have to fight a more defensive battle in Ukraine by the end of the year. Michael Gierstad, an analyst with the UK-based International Institute for Strategic Studies, IISS, think tank, told the outlet.
Пострел! Пострел!
The IISS think tank said in February 2024 that Russia has been able to replenish its extensive tank and vehicle losses in Ukraine, but much of the hardware heading for the front lines are not new. Moscow is often sacrificing quality for quantity, the think tank added. According to Ukraine's count, Russia has lost well over 8,000 tanks. This estimate comes in higher than many Western intelligence figures, which typically sit at under roughly half of this tally. Dutch open-source intelligence outlet Oryx has visually verified 3,243 Russian tank losses, but stresses the true number is likely to be higher. The IISS estimated in February that Russia had lost at least 3,000 tanks, adding at the time, "To put that in perspective, Russia's battlefield tank losses are greater than the number it had when it launched its offensive in 2022. Moscow is also contending with having to replace the barrels of artillery systems like howitzers that are in constant use, according to Tuesday's report. The barrels in artillery pieces littered along the hot spots of fighting need replacing as frequently as every few months, the outlet said, with Russia taking barrels from old, towed artillery pieces to fix onto self-propelled howitzers for the battlefield.
Постріл! Ага! Постріл! Ага! Постріл! Ага! Постріл!
Уровень 30.05.
Орудие! Выстрел! 5. Владимир. 50. Орудие! Выстрел! Выстрел!